The Vanessa Feltz Breakfast Show.
First for London, first for Londoners.
Weekday mornings from 7.
BBC Radio London.
Can you imagine London as a capital city where the only students who can afford to study are the extremely rich, or those who happen to live right here in London, which you may say is the same thing. You have to be pretty rich to live here in London. Is it true that students are being priced out of the capital? It's just so expensive to find accommodation here. Hundreds of students at one London university have stopped paying their rent until it's cut. Protesters at University College London claim they're withholding over £250,000 until demands of a 40% cut rent are met. The rent strikers say the average rent for a student at UCL has gone up by more than half since 2009, making the cheapest rooms more expensive than student loan payments. BBC Radio London's Jason Rossum is at a hall of residence for us now. Hello, Jason. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Vanessa. Yes, I'm at Max Rain House, which is one of the halls of residences where students are on a rent strike, they're calling it. It's here on the Camden Road, and they say rents at UCL have risen, as you mentioned there, Vanessa, by around 56% since 2009. Now, Max Rain House is one of the cheaper halls, because it's not very close to the university itself. It's here on the Camden Road. Now, there are 272 rooms here. They cost between about £100 to £230 a week. And in the room, you've got a desk, you've got a bed, a window, and a sink. You even have to share your bathroom with about 10 to maybe 13 other people. And joining me now are some of the students who live here at Max Rain House who are on the rent strike. I've got 18-year-olds George and Josh and Laura, who's 19, and they pay about they do pay £135 a week, isn't it, George? UCL say the rents are competitive in comparison with equivalent London institutions and far less than rates for comparable accommodation in the private sector. So, George, how much do you think you should be paying?
Well, I feel the rent should be affordable. And the fact that UCL makes 45% profit on our rent is obscene. I think £80 a week should be what we pay.
So £80 a week, because at the moment your 135 is what's it doing to you?
Well, it's just unaffordable. Like, many people have to get jobs to buy food, to go out, and they just don't have time to study. It affects people's studies because they can't afford it, have to get a job, don't have time to...
You don't have a job, do you, George?
I don't, because I can't with my course. It's just so full on. Because I do architecture. It is basically a full-time job, my course.
All right, let's move on to Josh, also paying £135 a week. Now, you knew what the rent was, didn't you, when you came here in last September, Josh? So you knew it was going to be £135 a week. Why do you want to change it now?
Well, I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it 100 times. I had no idea what living in London was going to be like. Nobody had a clue. And you shouldn't be put off, you shouldn't be put off living in halls by the price. I mean, living in halls is an experience. Anyone will tell you that. Anyone who's lived at home or has lived in private accommodation for the first year will tell you they probably regretted it. I just think now with the sort of the contract, like not following through with the contract, it's just many of these students that are going on strike have realised that the contract that they initially signed, they've had a change of perspective, really. They know what London's like now, and they know what they can afford, and more importantly, what they can't afford. So they've decided that the contract isn't actually, it's not suitable for them. It doesn't look out for their interests. I mean, people say UCL's guilty of social cleansing, exploiting. Why would you continue with a contract that does that to you? You try and change it, right? And the first step to that is having a discussion with UCL and saying we're not okay with this current contract.
Laura, if you decided to leave here because it's just too much in rent, where else would you live for £135 a week in London? Central London, really. It's just down the road.
Yeah, I mean, living in central London wouldn't be an option because you have to live a bit further out because it's just extortionate. And I mean, the fact that Max Rain House, among most of the residences, are sort of reflecting prices in the private sector just isn't right, because UCL should be protecting the welfare of its students, not talking about competition and sort of private rates. That's not what it should be about. It should be about looking after us.
All right, thank you very much, Laura. Angus O'Brien is also here, Vanessa. He's UCL's Union Halls accommodation representative. Now, you've moved out of halls now, and you're paying, if you don't mind me asking, what?
I'm paying £125 a week for...
Which is less.
It is less, and it's much nicer as well, of course.
So what have you got?
I've got a flat, essentially, in Finsbury Park.
And you're not sharing a bathroom with 10 others?
Not quite.
Now, Angus, what do you want from UCL? We've got a representative from UCL coming on later, Andrew Granger, with Vanessa. What would you want to ask him?
Well, fundamentally, we want to enter a dialogue with UCL about this. This is affecting access to education at our university, and it's going to be a threat to the future if students aren't able to come to study at UCL if they simply can't afford it. We've been trying for a year now with the campaign to enter into a proper dialogue with them, so we want to talk to them. But we also want them to say something different, want them to say something new, and actually think about the problem that's going on. I know exactly what Andrew Granger will say later today when he comes onto your programme. He will say that the hall's rents are competitive and that they match, they are better than a private market. We want to take it out of this context and put it back into the context of what's best for education.
Angus, thank you to you, George, Joss and Laura as well. So those are the views of the students here at Max Rain House on the Camden Road, Vanessa.
I don't know what people are going to be thinking about that, Jason. I think some people may be flabbergasted at the idea of students being bright enough to be accepted onto degree courses at top London universities, but somehow not bright enough to make a few phone calls or look on the internet and find out how much it was going to cost them to live in London and whether they were going to be able to afford it or not, especially if they were studying maths or economics. You think they might be able to sort of do a few sums in advance, and if they weren't going to be able to afford it, to wonder about how they were going to make it work. I don't know. Jason Rosen there reporting for us. We're going to be speaking to a representative from UCL. Do you think that the students are absolutely right, that actually their accommodation shouldn't be linked to accommodation prices in the wider market? Really, the whole thing should be heavily subsidised so they can easily afford to pay the rent in halls here in London, because otherwise what will happen is that only wealthy pupils and students will be able to come here, and the others will